Lone Pine, California, September 1965. The Alabama hills stretch endlessly under a sky so blue, it hurts to look at directly. Ancient granite formations rise from the desert floor like sleeping giants, carved by millennia of wind and weather into shapes that seem almost supernatural. This is where the real West begins, where Hollywood comes to capture something authentic, something that cannot be built on a studio backlot or faked with clever lighting. The air is thin at this altitude, nearly 4,000 feet above sea level. Every breath carries the scent of sage and creosote, mixed with the metallic taste of desert minerals baking in the afternoon sun. The silence here is profound, broken only by the occasional cry of a red-tailed hawk circling high overhead, or the whisper of wind through Joshua trees that have stood sentinel in this place for centuries. Two cars sit parked in the shadow of a massive boulder formation, their metal bodies already hot to the touch despite the shade. A black Mustang convertible, pristine and powerful, sits next to a weathered pickup truck that has seen better days but still runs as smooth as the day it rolled off the assembly line. The vehicles tell a story about their owners, one that anyone with eyes can read. Steve McQueen leans against the Mustang's hood, 35 years old and radiating the kind of restless energy that made him famous. The king of cool himself, though there's nothing particularly cool about the sweat beading on his forehead in the desert heat. McQueen has driven out here from Los Angeles for reasons he couldn't entirely explain if pressed to do so. Something about needing space, needing to test himself against something real rather than the manufactured challenges of movie sets and studio contracts. Glenn Ford sits on a flat rock 20 yards away, 49 years old and perfectly still. Where McQueen fidgets and adjusts his position every few minutes, Ford might as well be part of the landscape itself. His weathered face shows no discomfort from the heat, no impatience with the passage of time. Ford has learned the desert's first lesson, that survival here depends on conservation of energy, on moving only when movement serves a purpose. If you want to see more stories about Hollywood legends who proved themselves in places where cameras couldn't save them, subscribe to Glenn Ford Hidden Legacy. The two men have worked together before, crossed paths at industry functions and premieres, but they've never been truly alone like this. Never stripped of the protective layers of Hollywood protocol and studio publicity. Out here, with nothing but rock and sky and silence, they're just two middle-aged men carrying guns and nursing private competitions that have never been spoken aloud. McQueen's holster rig is a custom piece, tooled leather dyed black and fitted with silver conchos that catch the light when he moves. The gun inside is a Colt single-action army, beautifully maintained and perfectly balanced for his specific hand size and reach. Everything about the setup speaks of money spent and attention to detail. This is equipment chosen by someone who takes his craft seriously, who believes that the right tools can make the difference between good and great. Ford's rig is simpler, almost austere in its functionality. Brown leather worn smooth from years of use, shaped to his body through countless hours of practice. The Colt inside sits with the casual readiness of a tool rather than a showpiece. There's no decoration, no unnecessary flourish. Just leather and steel, and the kind of unconscious perfection that comes from doing something the same way 10,000 times. For the past hour, McQueen has been practicing his draw, working through variations in stance and grip, trying to shave fractions of seconds off his time. His movements are fluid and controlled, the product of professional training and natural athleticism. Each draw is faster than most actors could ever hope to achieve, a demonstration of genuine skill honed through dedication and repetition. Ford watches without comment, his pale eyes tracking each movement with the detached interest of a craftsman observing another craftsman's work. There's no judgment in his gaze, no obvious approval or disapproval. Just attention, the kind of focused observation that misses nothing and reveals nothing. "Getting pretty quick there, Steve," Ford finally says, his voice carrying easily across the space between them despite its quiet tone. McQueen holsters his Colt and turns to face Ford directly. "Quick enough for movie work, but I hear you've got something special in that department." "People say a lot of things," Ford replies with a slight shrug. Most of it's just Hollywood talk. Maybe. But I also hear you got timed officially. 0.4 seconds from leather to target. McQueen's voice carries a challenge, subtle but unmistakable. That's supposed to be some kind of record. Ford stands slowly, unfolding from the rock with the fluid grace of a man who knows how to move efficiently. Stopwatch times don't mean much out here, Steve. Desert doesn't care about records. Real life isn't about records either. McQueen counters, his competitive instincts finally showing themselves clearly. It's about who's faster when it matters, when there's no second chance if you're wrong. The words hang in the dry air like smoke from a gunpowder blast. What started as casual conversation has shifted into something more serious, more fundamental. This is no longer about Hollywood gossip or industry reputation. This is about two men testing each other's measure in the only way that really counts. McQueen steps away from his car, moving to an open patch of ground where the afternoon sun throws his shadow long and dark across the desert floor. His stance is perfect, feet positioned for maximum stability, right hand hovering inches from his gun grip. Everything about his posture speaks of coiled energy waiting for release. "Draw," McQueen says to himself, and his hand snaps down to his weapon. The motion is impressive by any standard. Smooth, controlled, economical. The Colt clears leather in a single fluid movement, coming up to aim in less than a second. McQueen's form is textbook perfect, the result of professional training and hours of practice. Any director would be pleased to film such a draw. Any audience would be convinced of its deadly authenticity. Ford nods slightly, acknowledging the skill he's just witnessed. "That's good work, Steve. Real good." "But not good enough?" McQueen asks, hearing something in Ford's tone that others might miss. "Depends what you're measuring against," Ford replies, then lapses back into silence. The challenge has been issued and acknowledged, though neither man has spoken it directly. McQueen walks closer to where Ford stands, his boots crunching softly on the gravel and sand that covers everything in this place. "You know, Glenn, I heard they timed you on a movie set. But a movie set isn't real life. Real life doesn't come with countdown timers and multiple takes if you mess up the first one." Ford's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his posture. A subtle straightening of his spine, a barely perceptible adjustment in the way he carries his weight. McQueen has crossed a line, suggested that Ford's reputation is built on studio tricks rather than genuine skill. "You want to see real life, Steve?" Ford asks, his voice carrying a new edge. "I wouldn't mind," McQueen replies, trying to maintain his casual tone but unable to hide his curiosity entirely. Ford walks to the center of the open space, his movement unhurried but purposeful. There's no drama in his preparation, no theatrical stance or obvious positioning. He simply stands there, right side angled toward an invisible target, hand relaxed at his side. To a casual observer, he might be waiting for someone to take his photograph, rather than preparing to demonstrate something that will redefine McQueen's understanding of what human reflexes can achieve. The silence that follows is complete and profound. Even the wind seems to pause, as if the desert itself wants to witness what's about to happen. McQueen finds himself holding his breath without realizing it, every sense focused on the man standing 20 feet away. Ford's breathing slows and deepens. His eyes fix on a point far down the imaginary street, seeing something that exists only in his mind, but has become absolutely real to his body. In that moment, Glenn Ford is no longer a 49-year-old actor standing in the California desert. He is every gunfighter who ever faced death in a dusty street, every lawman who ever had to choose between drawing fast and dying slow. His hand moves. McQueen's eyes, trained by years of high-speed action and split-second timing, cannot follow what happens next. Ford's hand doesn't seem to travel from his side to his gun so much as simply appear wrapped around the Colt's grip. The weapon clears leather in a motion so smooth and economical that it appears to happen outside the normal flow of time. One instant the gun rests in its holster. The next instant it's pointed downrange, hammer-cocked, ready to deliver death with mathematical precision. There's no visible transition between these states, no moment when McQueen can point and say, "There, that's when the draw began." The gun is simply not drawn, and then it is drawn, and the space between those conditions seems to exist outside normal reality. Ford holds the aim for a heartbeat, then smoothly returns the weapon to its holster. The entire sequence, draw and reholster, takes place in the time it would take most men to recognize that a threat exists. McQueen stares at the spot where Ford's gun had been pointed, then at the holster, where it now rests, then at Ford's face. "Jesus Christ!" McQueen whispers, and the profanity sounds like a prayer in the desert silence. Ford's expression remains unchanged, as calm and controlled as if he's just demonstrated how to tie a knot rather than how to kill a man faster than thought itself. The only sound is the soft click of the Colt settling into its leather home, a sound that seems to echo off the surrounding rocks like a gunshot. Then Ford looks at McQueen. Really looks at him, with those pale blue eyes that have seen everything and judged most of it wanting. It's not an angry look or a challenging look. It's something far more devastating than either of those things. It's the look of a master craftsman observing someone who thought they understood the craft, but has just realized they've been playing in shallow water while the ocean stretches endlessly beyond their comprehension. In that single look, McQueen reads a message as clear as if Ford had spoken it aloud. "I am fast because this is my life's work. You are trying to be fast because you think it makes you better than other people. There is a difference, and now you know what it is." The look lasts perhaps 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds contain entire conversations about skill and dedication, and the vast distance between wanting something and truly possessing it. McQueen feels something inside him collapse, not his ego or his pride, but his illusion that talent and training are the same thing as mastery. Ford turns away first, walking back toward his truck, with the same unhurried pace he's maintained all afternoon. There's no gloating in his movement, no sense of victory over a defeated opponent. If anything, he seems slightly sad, as if he regrets having to demonstrate something that should have been obvious all along. McQueen stands alone in the center of the open space, still trying to process what he's witnessed. His mind keeps replaying the moment, trying to break it down into component parts that make sense. But the harder he thinks about it, the more impossible it becomes. Ford didn't just draw faster than McQueen expected. Ford drew faster than McQueen's eyes could register, faster than his mind could track, faster than seemed humanly possible. The King of Cool has just learned that there are levels of cool he never imagined, depths of skill that exist beyond his reach no matter how hard he trains or how much he wants to achieve them. It's a humbling revelation, the kind that either destroys a man or makes him wiser. McQueen chooses wisdom. He walks to his Mustang without looking back at Ford, who is already loading his gear into the pickup truck. There's nothing more to say between them. The conversation has been completed in the language of action, and both men understand its conclusion perfectly. As McQueen drives back down the winding mountain road toward Los Angeles, he thinks about what just happened in the desert. Not the mechanics of it, which remain beyond his comprehension, but the philosophy behind it. Ford didn't demonstrate superior speed just to show off or put a younger man in his place. Ford demonstrated mastery, because that's what masters do when confronted with pretenders. They reveal the truth, gently but completely. The rivalry that brought McQueen to Lone Pine dies in the Alabama hills, killed by 3 seconds of reality, delivered with surgical precision. McQueen will never again feel the need to test himself against Ford's legend. He's seen the legend made flesh, and he understands now that some mountains are not meant to be climbed. Ford drives home through the gathering twilight, his thoughts already moving on to other matters. The demonstration means nothing to him beyond its function as education. He's taught a younger man something important about the difference between skill and mastery, and now that lesson is complete. Tomorrow he'll return to the business of being Glenn Ford, actor and craftsman, carrying his extraordinary ability like a tool in his toolkit rather than a trophy on his shelf. Years later, when interviewers ask McQueen about his interest in fast-draw shooting, he always gives the same answer. There are people who are fast, and then there's Glenn Ford. I learned the difference on a mountain in California, and that was enough learning for one lifetime. Ford never tells the story himself. He doesn't need to. The desert keeps its own counsel, and the wind that blows through the Alabama hills carries no tales of human pride or competition. Only the enduring silence of stone and sky, and the knowledge that some truths are too profound for words. For more stories about Hollywood legends who prove their worth in places where only genuine skill mattered, subscribe to Glenn Ford Hidden Legacy.